Hollywood once had hundreds of dazzling beauties, but few ever made an entire film crew forget to breathe just by walking into a room the way Shelley Duvall did. With a look that was delicately eerie, hypnotic white eyes, and a dazed fairy tale-like presence, Shelley became a muse of the 1970. Yet, behind the spotlight was a story more surreal than any film she ever starred in. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Fans were stunned when Shelley appeared on Dr. Phil, revealing shocking details about her late co-star Robin Williams. From the Queen of Fairy Tales, she became a symbol of Hollywood tragedy, a living testament to the price of daring to be different in the city of glitter and excess. Born in Texas to a family with no ties to the arts, her parents worked as real estate brokers, cattle auctioneers, and later became lawyers. Young Shelley was a whirlwind of chaos. She would run through the house, knocking things over, leaving behind a trail of destruction, and her parents' weary sighs. Eventually, her mother gave her the nickname Manic Mouse, a name that sounded like a curse, but fit her uncannily well. Yet beneath that wild exterior was a sensitive soul. Shelley once dreamed of becoming a scientist, picturing herself in white gloves in a lab, unlocking the mysteries of the universe. But a single biology class shattered that dream. Watching a live monkey dissection broke her compassionate heart. She abandoned science, switched to studying nutrition, and took a job selling cosmetics at a department store, her strikingly unusual face sometimes landing her part-time modelling gigs. It seemed Shelley was headed for a quiet, ordinary life, until one fateful night in 1970 changed everything. That year, Shelley had just married Bernard Sampson, an unknown young artist. Determined to help her husband make a name for himself, she hosted a party to showcase his paintings. But instead of looking at the art, the guests only looked at Shelley. Among them were 3 crew members working for the eccentric director, Robert Altman. And instead of asking about prices, they whispered about her strange pale eyes, her bird-like chirping voice, and the boundless energy that seemed to light up the entire room. A few days later, they invited Shelley to meet a group of art patrons. Excited, she brought along Sampson's paintings, unaware that the patrons were actually Robert Altman and producer Lou Adler, 2 Hollywood giants secretly searching for a fresh face. They didn't glance at Sampson's work. They just stared at Shell as if an alien creature had just landed on a film set. When the meeting ended, Altman and Adler didn't mention art at all. Instead, they gently asked, "Would you like to be in a movie?" Shelley, still wide-eyed, like a girl lost in Oz, nodded. She snapped a Polaroid photo, left her phone number, and walked away, completely unaware that she had just signed an invisible contract that would send her straight to Hollywood. For the first 6 or 7 years of her career, Duvall worked almost exclusively with Altman, the visionary director who saw in her a rare otherworldly energy that Hollywood hardly ever witnessed. But as the spotlight began to shine brighter on her, her marriage to Sampson crumbled. They divorced in 1974, and that was when Duvall decided to dive deeper into the world of cinema. She tried enrolling at the prestigious Actors Studio in New York, but after just a few classes, she quit. Too much theory, too much cold analysis, while Duvall only wanted to burn with instinct, and her instincts were right. The camera seemed made to capture her every strange glance, every subtle movement. Her big break came in 1977, with 3 women, no longer just a muse being guided by a director. This time, Duvall had full creative control. She improvised nearly all her lines, wrote diary entries for her character, and decorated her character's room herself. The film was only a moderate commercial success, but critics went wild. Andrew Sarris compared her to a young Katharine Hepburn, and winning Best Actress at Cannes that year felt like a slap in the face to everyone who had ever doubted her talent. But as her career soared, Duvall's heart fell into a fragile love. She met musician Paul Simon in New York, and they moved in together. It seemed like a fairy tale, but it wasn't. Duvall felt utterly alone amid the glittering parties and fashionable faces. She sacrificed many opportunities, even turning down a role Altman had offered her, a choice that fractured their friendship. As Simon grew distant, Duvall painfully introduced him to her best friend, Carrie Pfizer. And Pfizer was the one Simon chose. With tears in her eyes, Duvall said goodbye at the airport and boarded a flight toward her next fate, Stanley Kubrick. And that was when the story turned cold and grey. The Shining 1980 made Duvall an icon, but it also nearly destroyed her. Kubrick wanted a Wendy Torrance, who was desperate and broken, and he was willing to crush Duvall to get it. Jack Nicholson revealed that Kubrick would regularly yell at Duvall, blaming her for wasting the entire crew's time. He isolated her from all her co-stars, turning the set into a frigid prison. Duvall filmed 6 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day, for 13 straight months. She had to cry until she was drained, constantly carrying a water bottle to avoid collapsing from exhaustion. Kubrick forced her to reshoot agonizing scenes dozens of times and ordered everyone not to comfort her while he was wearing her down to achieve raw realism. And behind the scenes of this legendary horror classic, those wide eyes saw a real hell. In the documentary Arena Making The Shining, director Stanley Kubrick's daughter, Vivian, revealed a chilling truth. Kubrick deliberately broke down Duvall's spirit to force her into the performance he envisioned. He didn't want an actress. He wanted a real victim. And he turned the set into a psychological battlefield to get her there. The iconic baseball bat scene where Wendy screams and trembles as she fends off her husband wasn't acting. It was pure, unfiltered despair. Kubrick forced Duvall to reshoot the scene 127 times, an insane number that set a record in film history. Every swing of the bat, every tear streaming down her face was real because behind the camera stood a woman slowly breaking down. After each day on set, Duvall returned home in a state of panic, mentally shattered and physically drained. Her hair began falling out in clumps to the point that after filming Wrapped, she brought the handfuls of fallen hair to Kubrick as living proof of the pain he had inflicted. And yet the cruelest part was this. After all those sacrifices, not a single person praised her. No applause, no words of encouragement. Instead, Hollywood rewarded her with a Golden Raspberry nomination for Worst Actress. A slap in the face to a woman who had sacrificed her mental health for the sake of art. It wasn't until much later, when the public finally understood what Duvall had endured, that one of the founders of the Razies admitted his shame and officially retracted the nomination. Too late to heal the damage, but at least a belated apology. And paradoxically, Duvall never publicly resented Kubrick. She still said she liked and respected him, as if that suffering had been a fair price to pay for art. And perhaps in some twisted way, Kubrick had gotten exactly what he wanted. A performance so powerful it left him saying he was very impressed. After the nightmare called The Shining, Duvall found her smile again with her old mentor Robert Altman in Popeye 1980. This time, Altman didn't torment her. He celebrated her. He cast Duvall as Olive Oil, a character her friends had long joked she was born to play, and just as they predicted, Duvall shone. Though critics panned the film, it was a box office success, and Duvall received glowing praise. Roger Ebert described her as a precious porcelain figurine with a shrill charm unlike anyone else. After the trembling Wendy, the witty Olive Oil felt like a rebirth. Duvall even said she grew to love Olive, perhaps because for the first time, she didn't have to act through tears. But then, just when the world thought she was about to break through, Duvall chose an unexpected path. She disappeared. She stepped away from the spotlight, moved behind the camera to produce children's shows, and met her longtime partner, Dan Gilroy. After the devastating 1994 earthquake destroyed her Los Angeles home, she returned to Texas quietly like a ghost. Since 2002, the name Shelley Duvall has been almost entirely absent from Hollywood, as if Wendy had closed the doors of the Overlook Hotel forever, and Olive Oyl had drifted away into memory. By 2016, when Duvall unexpectedly appeared on the Dr. Phil show to talk about her mental health, audiences could hardly recognise her. On stage stood a frail, gaunt figure with hollow eyes and words that left the entire studio silent. She claimed that Robin Williams, her Popeye co-star who had died 2 years earlier, was actually still alive and a shape-shifting being. Before viewers could recover from the shock, Duvall unleashed more chilling declarations that aliens had implanted a device in her leg, that she was being hunted by the Sheriff of Nottingham, and that wasps had once attacked her spinal cord. Social media exploded in a mix of horror and sympathy. Fans were outraged, accusing Dr. Phil of exploiting a vulnerable star just to chase ratings. They couldn't fathom how the once radiant woman from The Shining had ended up like this. Almost immediately, Vivian Kubry, daughter of director Stanley Kubry, who had witnessed Duvall's breakdown on set, publicly defended her, condemning the show for exploiting her collapse as cheap entertainment. Yet, amid the firestorm of criticism, something unexpected happened. Director Lee Unreich, who had spent years searching for Duvall to complete his behind-the-scenes book on The Shining, was able to track her down thanks to that very controversial appearance in a remote town in Texas Hill Country. When they finally met, Unri showed her old photos from the set. He admitted he was nervous, afraid she might no longer be lucid enough to remember. But contrary to the chaotic image she had shown on television, Duvall appeared strikingly clear-minded. Between bursts of erratic excitement, she could still talk coherently for hours, recall the smallest details of her career, and most of all, she still felt proud of what she had accomplished in Hollywood. In 2022, after 2 decades of seclusion, Duvall unexpectedly announced her return in the independent horror film The Forest Hills. Fans held their breath, hoping for a miraculous comeback, but the miracle never came. In July 2024, Shelley Duvall passed away from complications related to diabetes, bringing an end to a life that was as glorious, tragic, and bewildering as any movie ever made. On the day she died, directors, screenwriters, and fellow actors from across Hollywood paid heartfelt tribute because even after vanishing from the spotlight for 20 years, Shelley Duvall was never truly forgotten. Her eccentric roles, haunting white eyes, and life that played out like a surreal film are still being discovered by new generations as a legend, and also as a chilling warning about the price Hollywood can exact on fragile souls.